Welcome to the World History 1 lecture series. At the end of each slide there will be a 10-second delay. Use this time to pause the presentation and complete your notes. When you are done, push play and you will move forward. This lecture will begin in 5 seconds. Welcome to World History 1 Lecture 1.2 on Historical Eras. There's Father Time, and he's quite pleased with us. You see, we've taken time, which he has, and we've broken it down into two measurable parts: BC, or before Christ, and AD, Anno Domini, after the birth of Christ. And then we have also created BCE, before the Common Era, and CE, which is the Common Era. And all this pretty much revolves around the birth of Jesus. But Father Time says to us, hey, wait a minute. My time can't just be split up into two blocks. I've got a lot of details here. So he says, can we use that ruler? Can we use that concept of breaking down measurements further? We certainly can. And what we're going to do is we're going to break things down today into historical eras. So with that said, go to the next slide. Now things are about to get interesting when it comes to measuring time. You see, we've already talked about the big split, BC and AD, BCE and CE, but now we're going to break things down further by what's happening during these periods. The first thing we're going to talk about is an era. That's the focus of this lecture. Now, an era is a long period of time, marking the start and end of an important event. So eras are very big, and they mark the beginning and the end of a major time period. The other thing we have is an age, or a period. This is a large interval of time with a definite characteristic. All of the stuff happening during this age looks somewhat similar. These are pretty weighty ideas, so let's look at the timeline I've put on the bottom of the slide to understand this a little bit better. We've got the Bronze Age and the Iron Age, two ages that are basically characterized by what is going on, how are people building things. In the Bronze Age we're using bronze as a metal, and in the Iron Age we're using iron as a metal. But these two ages fall within a larger era that we call the Ancient Era. So the Bronze Age and the Iron Age fall within the Ancient Era. They don't always align like this, but here's a good example. So let's go to the next slide. Now that you know the difference between an era and an age, let's look at the 6 major eras you will study in this class. The first 2 major eras are called prehistoric eras, and they have nothing to do with the dinosaurs. Instead, prehistoric eras, or prehistory, are times before when humans keep written records. This is before we're writing stuff down, and it usually happens any time before 3300 BCE. Now, there are 2 prehistoric eras, the Paleolithic era and the Neolithic era. And if you look at the bottom of the screen, you'll see where these eras fit in with the other eras. The Paleolithic era is enormous. It's from 2 million BCE all the way to 10,000 BCE, and this is caveman stuff. Man is nomadic. He is wandering the land following his food. He's either hunting his food or he's gathering edible plants. The other era is the Neolithic era. That's from 10,000 BCE to 3300 BCE, and now man is down on the farm. Man has learned to grow his crops. He has domesticated his animals. He lives in a town. He doesn't have to move around to kill his food. Go to the next slide. The next two eras we're going to discuss are the ancient and classical eras, and this is where we begin to see civilization. We'll talk about what is a civilization in our next unit, but you already know a lot about these two eras. The ancient era civilizations are around from 4000 BCE to about 1000 BCE, and these are places like Mesopotamia, Egypt, the Hebrews, the Persians, and the Phoenicians. We call this time the start of civilization. Our classical era civilizations are from 1200 BCE to 500 CE. So this crosses between the BC AD big split. These are places like Greece, Rome, India, and China, and this is the height of the older civilizations, and also the beginning of the end for these civilizations. Go to the next slide. The last two eras we're going to study are the medieval era and the modern era, and we study these two eras to see how civilizations fall apart and how they rebuild themselves. The medieval era lasts from 500 CE to about 1300 CE, and this is all about knights and the Crusades and plagues and the rise of the Catholic Church and the rise of Islam and the rise of European nation-states and kingdoms like England and France and Spain and Germany and Italy and Russia. In other words, we're going to be studying the history of the Middle East and Europe. The other era we're going to study is the modern era. That goes from 1300 CE to right now as you are watching this video. But we're only going to study a sliver of that time. We're going to study the Renaissance. But what you need to know is this: the Renaissance and anything after 1492, when Columbus sailed the ocean blue, all the way to the point that you're watching this on your computer or on your cell phone, is part of the modern era. Thank you for watching this lecture, and I look forward to seeing you in class.